Imagine a dinner table piled high with foods that might make your stomach turn today. Medieval meals were perfectly normal at the time, but now they're definitely off the menu. Let's take a look at some of the bizarre, unappetizing dishes that were once considered gourmet in the Middle Ages. First up, let's talk about stuffed dormice. You heard me right. Medieval nobles loved eating dormice. They were seen as a delicacy, often served stuffed with minced meat, herbs, and spices, then roasted. They were small, tender, and apparently quite tasty to people back then. But today, it's hard to imagine anyone volunteering to munch on a rodent, let alone one that's been stuffed and roasted. Next, medieval people were big on cooking with blood. While we might balk at the idea of using animal blood in modern cuisine, it was actually a common ingredient in medieval dishes. One of the more notorious examples is black pudding, a sausage made from pig's blood, fat, and oatmeal. It might sound like something you'd find at a butcher shop today, but back then it was a staple for both peasants and the nobility. It's still eaten in some places today, but many people would be turned off by the thought of blood as a main ingredient. And thinking of things we wouldn't want to eat, let's talk about lamprey, a type of parasitic fish. The medieval elite prized this slimy eel-like creature, often served cooked in a rich, spiced sauce. The most popular way to cook it was to simmer it in its own blood, then top it off with spices and wine. Another medieval oddity was the use of fermented fish sauce, which was common in both Roman and medieval cooking. This sauce was made by fermenting fish guts in salt for weeks or even months, resulting in a pungent, stinky liquid. Medieval cooks used it to add flavor to a variety of dishes. It was everywhere. But if you've ever smelled something fermented for that long, you know it's not something most people would want on their food today. For something a little more high class, let's talk about swan. Swans weren't just beautiful birds, they were royal property. That's right. In medieval England, swans were so highly regarded that they could only be eaten by the king or someone granted special permission. But what's truly disturbing is how swans were prepared for the royal table. They were often roasted and then redressed with their feathers attached, just like peacocks, to make them look like they were still alive. And lastly, there's pottage, a staple of medieval peasant cuisine. But this wasn't your typical vegetable stew. It was a thick, murky concoction made from whatever scraps could be found. This could be old meat bones, stale bread, and any leftover vegetables. Sometimes the ingredients had been sitting for days, fermenting and growing mold. While pottage was practical for the time, it's safe to say it's not a dish most people today would willingly eat. So next time you complain about your dinner options, just remember you could be sitting down to a lamprey simmered in blood with a side of fermented fish sauce or stuffed dormice. Medieval food was all about survival and status, not comfort or taste. Lucky for us, we've moved past these bizarre meals and we'll probably keep it that way for a while.